Have you ever noticed there are several fantastic little details placed in Bluey that most people don't even realize? For example, one of these details happens in the episode where the healers are traveling and Chili wants to buy sunglasses. But believe it or not, apparently she walks out of the store with sunglasses on her face and without paying. This is because just when it seems she's about to swipe the card, Bandit hastily calls the whole family back into the car, and we see her giving a little smile, which is very suspicious. But it's all just a big misunderstanding, because in Australia, there's a payment method called PayPass, where you simply tap the card and the item is automatically charged. In fact, this has been starting to be used worldwide for some time.
What? It's not finished!
This is just one of the incredible little details in Bluey episodes that we'll show you today. Other cartoons. In the episode where we see Chili and the family going on a trip and we see her relaxing and reading a book. The cool thing is, we can see the author of the book at one point, and he's a dog with a bow tie and round glasses. What's interesting that almost nobody knows is that this dog author of the book is practically identical to Peabody from the Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon, very famous in the 60s. So, we can say that this would be a reference to a character from another cartoon for the first time in Bluey. Lost relative. But about this character, there is another reference to him in another episode that almost nobody knows. We're talking about the 2017 pilot episode where we see a portrait of a character practically identical to the dog author of the book, who also wears a bow tie and round lens glasses. Could the initial idea have been that the book was written by some relative of Chili? This question remains open. Jean-Luc speaking English. The episode where Bluey meets Jean-Luc is simply unforgettable, and one of the things that stands out the most is the fact that even though they speak different languages, since Jean-Luc speaks French, the two little dogs still manage to play and form a beautiful friendship. But did you know that if you watch this Bluey episode in French, automatically Jean-Luc will speak English? That's quite ironic, to be honest. Can you imagine if Bluey had access to the episode? She could switch the language to French and then she would understand everything Jean-Luc said on those days. Of course, I'm kidding.
Hi. Tu veux jouer avec moi? Huh? Est-ce qu'on joue ensemble? I'm not really sure what you're talking about.
Rusty's family symbols. Rusty is the character closest to Bluey. And no, we're not talking about friendship, but rather appearance, since they both have practically the same design, as he would have been the protagonist of the series before Bluey was chosen for the role. Rusty's species is the Australian red kelpie, and this type of dog always has a spot on its chest. And if you stop to notice, you'll see that each of Rusty's family members has a different design on their chest. Rusty has a diamond, while his little sister has a small ball, and his older brother has a downward arrow. Rusty's mother has a design that looks like a lightning bolt, and his father a triangle. These details are really cool. And if you subscribe here to the channel, they get even cooler. Just click the subscribe button down here. Pineapples. Bluey's episodes always have the famous Easter eggs of the long plush dog and the tennis ball. But there's also another item that appears a lot in the series. We're talking about the pineapple. The question is, why does this fruit appear so much? And the answer is that it represents the symbol of LUDO Studios, which is the company responsible for creating Bluey episodes. Did you know that? I don't think so. Chili's Trademark. When the girls go to visit Grandpa Mort, they get to know the places where their mother grew up. And Grandpa himself says that Chili knows that place like the back of her hand because she grew up there. And proof of that, we see when the girls and Grandpa are in the swamp, and we see Chili's name marked on the root of one of the trees. She definitely did that when she might have been the age of her daughters. Bluey the Karate Kid. One of the coolest details we found is that in the episode where Bing and Bluey are helping Bandit take out the trash at night, you can tell by Bluey's behavior that she's just started taking karate lessons. And not only that, we see she's wearing a white belt, which is what all beginner karate students get. But by the end of the episode, if you're observant, you'll notice Bluey has a yellow belt. She leveled up. I love these little details in Bluey.
What's a Bobo head?
I don't know.
Did he call anyone else a Bobo head?
Yeah, he called everyone a Bobo head.
Oh, okay.
Sleepy Buddy. In the episode where Bandit takes Bluey, Bingo, and Mackenzie to the creek, they start at the playground, and we see a little pug, Buddy, at the top of the slide waiting for Bandit to come out. And here, we find some really cool details that many people never noticed. The first small one we can see is that Buddy is practically asleep while on top of the slide, and he starts to slip forward a bit while asleep until he's startled by Mackenzie. Bluey and Bingo's joyful scream. It must have been nap time for him. Snot on the slide. The other super funny and a bit gross detail this time is what he does right after. A characteristic of Buddy is that when he's awake, he always has his finger in his nose. And we all know what's inside the nose. And right after, the little pup takes his finger out and wipes it on the slide. Seriously, that's so gross. And if you, like me, were closely watching and listening to the conversation of the main characters in this episode, you probably didn't even notice this little gross detail. Even though he does these gross things, I still find this little pug very funny. If you also think so, in honor of this character, comment down below #buddy. Let's just hope he doesn't wipe his finger anywhere else. Old acquaintances. Still talking about this little secondary character from Bluey, we can see him in other episodes, and he almost always has his finger in his nose. And on top of that, he goes to the same school and class as Bingo, and somehow ends up recognizing Bandit on the day he picks up his daughter. And the two give each other a really funny stare, as if one is remembering the other. It could be from the day he wipes Snot on the slide, right? Chili and Rock. Have you noticed that in Bluey there are some hints that suggest Chili, at some point in the past, was a big fan of rock and maybe even had her own band? Okay, I might have gotten a bit carried away with the band part, but when we watch the weekend episode, we can see Chili going out for a walk and she has a small MP3 player that she uses to listen to music while walking. And when she returns from her walk, if we zoom in, we can even see that she was listening to Pink Floyd's album Dark Side of the Moon. Of course, this must definitely be a canine version of the album, but the fact is that Chili certainly likes 70s rock. Chili, John Travolta fan. And this isn't the only older reference we've noticed about Chili, because in the dance mode episode, we see the matriarch healer doing some dance steps totally inspired by movies from one actor, John Travolta. In the 70s, the actor starred in iconic dance films. And we see Chili performing some very similar moves to those the actor does in Pulp Fiction. And also in Grease. We can say that besides being a fan of old music, Chili is also a fan of the old dance moves. Bingo's belly. We all know that Bluey is almost a copy of Bandit, while Bingo is much more like Chili. And that's really cool, because it shows diversity within the healer family. And there's a characteristic of Bandit that neither Bluey nor Bingo ended up inheriting, his yellow belly. And that's really a distinctive feature of Bandit. But in the episode where we see Leela and Bingo developing a years-long friendship from a simple game of rope pulling, we notice something very cool. If you look closely, you'll notice that as Bingo grows older, her belly, which was very light, starts to have yellow fur just like Bandit's. You can see that when the friends win the prize at the science fair, it's still a very light yellow. And when they graduate, the yellow is very vivid. Really very similar to Bandit in that sense. Bluey's belly. Now, does the same thing happen with Bluey? If you wondered about this detail, we have the answer, which is no. And we can prove it. In the episode where Bluey meets Jean-Luc, we can see her as a teenager already. And at this point, if she were really going to have a yellow belly like her dad, it would already be visible. But the truth is, she's still the same as when she was little and met and played with Jean-Luc. In this case, Bluey takes after her mother. It's really cool to see that in these last two cases, the influences of Bandit and Chili on their daughters end up reversing. These little details in Bluey are really incredible. Those were the 15 almost imperceptible details and curiosities in Bluey that practically no one had noticed. At least, not until now. Watching and talking about Bluey is always very fun and enjoyable. That's why we've selected these two videos for you to keep enjoying some really cool content. Just pick one and click on it. Thanks, and enjoy the next video.